The night was my only companion. The moon, a pale witness to my eternal torment. I walked the empty streets, my footsteps silent, my breath non-existent. The city slept, unaware of the predator in its midst. But I was no ordinary predator. I was a vampire, cursed with immortality, thirsting for blood, and desperate for redemption. It had been centuries since I was turned. I still remembered the night, the pain, the hunger, the betrayal. My maker, a cruel and ancient creature, had left me to fend for myself, to navigate the labyrinth of my new existence. At first, I reveled in the power, the strength, the invincibility. But as the years turned to decades and the decades to centuries, the weight of my curse became unbearable. The blood I consumed sustained me, but it also chained me to a life of darkness and despair. I had seen empires rise and fall, loved and lost, and watched as everyone I ever cared for turned to dust. I was a monster, a shadow, a ghost. And yet, I clung to a sliver of hope. A hope that somewhere, somehow there was a cure. A way to undo what had been done to me. A way to become human again. My search had led me to the darkest corners of the world. I had consulted witches, alchemists, and even other vampires who claimed to have found a way to break the curse. But all their promises had led to dead ends, false hopes, and more bloodshed. I was beginning to lose faith, to accept that perhaps this was my fate. To wander the earth, a creature of the night, forever. But then I heard a rumor. A whisper in the underground. A scientist, a mortal who had dedicated his life to studying the supernatural. He claimed to have discovered a way to reverse the vampiric curse. It was a long shot, but it was the only lead I had left. I found him in a secluded laboratory, hidden deep within the mountains. The place was a maze of glass tubes, bubbling liquids, and strange machines. The scientist, Dr. Elias Varn, was an elderly man with sharp eyes and a nervous demeanor. He knew what I was the moment I stepped into his lab. "You're here for the cure," he said, his voice trembling but resolute. I nodded, my voice a low growl. "If it exists." He hesitated, his eyes darting to a large, sealed container in the corner of the room. "It exists, but it's not what you think. The process is dangerous. It could kill you." "I'm already dead," I replied, my voice hollow. Dr. Varn sighed and motioned for me to follow him. He led me to the container and opened it, revealing a series of vials filled with a glowing, silver liquid. "This is the serum," he explained. "It's designed to purge the vampiric virus from your body. But it's untested. I've never tried it on a live subject." I stared at the vials, my mind racing. This was it. My last chance. But something about the doctor's demeanor made me uneasy. There was a flicker of fear in his eyes, a hesitation in his movements. I could smell it on him, the scent of deceit. "You're lying," I said, my voice a low growl. "What aren't you telling me?" Dr. Varn's face paled and he took a step back. I didn't want to tell you this, but the serum has a side effect. It doesn't just purge the virus. It purges everything. Your memories, your emotions, your very soul. You'll be human, but you won't be you. I felt a cold dread settle in my chest. To lose my memories, my identity, was that a price I was willing to pay? Was it even worth it to become human if I wouldn't remember who I was? Before I could respond, the door to the lab burst open, and a group of armed men stormed in. They were dressed in black, their faces covered, and they moved with a precision that spoke of training and discipline. Dr. Varn's eyes widened in fear. "They found me," he whispered. "They found me, and now they've found you. Who are they?" I demanded, my fangs bared. "An organization," Dr. Varn replied, his voice trembling. "They've been hunting me, trying to steal my research. They want the serum, but not to cure vampires. They want to weaponize it." The men opened fire, their bullets tearing through the lab. I moved within human speed, dodging the bullets and taking down the attackers one by one. But there were too many of them, and they were well prepared. One of them managed to grab the vials of serum and make a run for the door. I couldn't let them take it. I couldn't let them turn my last hope into a weapon of destruction. I lunged after him, my claws extended, but before I could reach him, a sharp pain shot through my chest. I looked down to see a silver blade protruding from my heart. I fell to my knees, my vision blurring. The last thing I saw was the man with the vials disappearing into the night, and Dr. Varn lying lifeless on the floor. And then darkness. When I woke, I was alone. The lab was in ruins, the serum gone. My wound had healed, but the pain remained. I had failed. Again. But as I stood there, amidst the wreckage, I felt something I hadn't felt in centuries. A spark of determination. The serum was out there, and so were the people who had taken it. I didn't know if I would ever find it or if it would even work. But I had to try. I am a vampire and I am looking for a cure. And I will not stop until I find it, or die trying. The night was colder than usual, or perhaps it was the emptiness inside me that made it feel that way. The lab was behind me now, a smoldering ruin, a graveyard of my hopes. Dr. Varn was dead, the serum was gone, and the men who had taken it had vanished like shadows in the wind. But I was still here, still cursed, still searching. I wandered the city, my mind a storm of thoughts. The serum was out there, and so were the people who had stolen it. But who were they? What did they want? Dr. Varn had called them an organization, but that told me little. They were well-armed, well-trained, and they knew about the supernatural. That made them dangerous. More dangerous than I had anticipated. I needed answers, and I knew where to find them. The underground. The world of whispers and secrets, where mortals and monsters alike traded in information. It was a place I had avoided for centuries, a place where my kind were both revered and feared. But I had no choice. If I wanted to find the serum, I would have to dive into the darkness. The club was called Eclipse, a fitting name for a place where the line between light and shadow blurred. It was hidden beneath an old, crumbling building, accessible only through a series of tunnels and secret passages. The air was thick with the scent of blood, sweat, and desperation. The patrons were a mix of humans and creatures of the night, all seeking something they couldn't find in the world above. I moved through the crowd, my presence drawing uneasy glances. Vampires were not uncommon here, but I was different. Older, stronger, and my desperation was palpable. I could feel it radiating off me like a fever. I found him in a corner booth, shrouded in shadows. His name was Marcus, a vampire who had been around almost as long as I had. He was a broker of information, a dealer of secrets. And if anyone knew about the organization that had taken the serum, it was him. Marcus, I said, sliding into the booth across from him. He looked up, his red eyes narrowing. Well, if it isn't the Wanderer. What brings you to my humble abode? I need information, I said, cutting straight to the point. There's an organization. They're hunting vampires, stealing research. They took something from me. Marcus leaned back, a sly smile playing on his lips. Ah, you're talking about the Order of the Crimson Dawn. Nasty bunch. They've been causing quite a stir in the underground lately. The Order of the Crimson Dawn? I repeated, the name sending a chill down my spine. Who are they? Mortals, Marcus said, his voice dripping with disdain. But not your average hunters. They're scientists, mercenaries, fanatics. They believe vampires are an abomination, a disease that needs to be eradicated. But they're not just killing us. They're studying us, experimenting on us. And from what I've heard, they've been working on a way to cure vampirism. My heart, or what was left of it, skipped a beat. The serum. They have it. Marcus nodded. If it's a cure you're after, then yes, they probably do. But getting it won't be easy. The Order is well protected, and they don't take kindly to intruders. I don't care, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I need that serum. Where can I find them? Marcus hesitated, his eyes scanning me as if weighing the risks of helping me. Finally, he leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. There's a facility, hidden in the mountains not far from here. That's where they take their subjects. If your serum is anywhere, it's there. I stood, my mind already racing with plans. Thank you, Marcus. I owe you. He smirked, raising his glass in a mock toast. Don't thank me yet, old friend. The Order is not to be trifled with. If you go after them, you might not come back. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I had already made my decision. The serum was my last hope, my only chance at redemption. And I would do whatever it took to get it. The facility was exactly where Marcus had said it would be. A massive, fortified structure built into the side of a mountain, surrounded by high walls and armed guards. It was a fortress designed to keep people out, or to keep something in. I moved through the shadows, my senses heightened, my body coiled like a spring. The guards were well trained, but they were no match for a vampire of my age and strength. I took them down one by one, my movements swift and silent. The serum was close. I could feel it. Inside, the facility was a labyrinth of sterile hallways and locked doors. I moved quickly, my instincts guiding me. And then I found it. A laboratory filled with the same equipment I had seen in Dr. Varn's lab. And there, on a table in the center of the room, was the serum. I reached for it, my hand trembling. But before I could touch it, a voice stopped me cold. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." I turned, my eyes narrowing. A man stood in the doorway dressed in a black suit, his face calm and composed. He was older, with silver hair and sharp, calculating eyes. In his hand he held a device, a small remote control. "Who are you?" I growled, my fangs bared. "My name is irrelevant," he said, his voice smooth and cold. "What matters is that you are trespassing. And that serum you're so desperate for? It's not what you think." "What do you mean?" I demanded, my patience wearing thin. The man smiled, a cruel, twisted smile. "The serum doesn't cure vampirism. It destroys it. Completely. Irreversibly. If you take it, you won't just become human. You'll cease to exist. Your body, your mind, your soul, all of it will be erased. You'll be nothing." I stared at him, my mind reeling. Was he telling the truth? Or was this just another trick, another lie to keep me from the cure? "Why should I believe you?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger and desperation. "Because," the man said, his smile widening, "I created it. And I know exactly what it does." I felt a cold dread settle in my chest. If he was telling the truth, then the serum was not a cure. It was a death sentence. But if he was lying? Before I could decide, the man pressed a button on the remote, and alarms blared throughout the facility. The doors slammed shut, and I heard the sound of heavy footsteps approaching. "You have a choice," the man said, his voice echoing in the chaos. "Take the serum and end your existence, or stay as you are, a monster, a predator, a curse. Either way you lose." I looked at the serum, then at the man, and then at the approaching guards. I had no time to think, no time to decide. But one thing was clear. This was not the end. That I stared at the serum, its silver glow taunting me like a cruel joke. The man's words echoed in my mind, "Cease to exist." Was that truly my only option? To become nothing or remain a monster? The guards were closing in, their weapons raised, their faces cold and determined. I could hear their heartbeats, steady and confident, a reminder of the life I could never have again. In a flash, I made my choice. I grabbed the serum, not to use it, but to destroy it. With a snarl, I crushed the vial in my hand, the liquid sizzling against my skin like acid. The man's smug expression faltered, replaced by rage as he realized what I had done. "You fool!" he shouted, but I was already moving, tearing through the guards like a storm. As I fled the facility, the night swallowing me whole, I realized something. The cure was never the answer. My curse was my burden to bear, my eternal struggle. And perhaps, in that struggle there was a kind of redemption. Not in becoming human, but in choosing to fight. For myself, for what little humanity I had left. The serum was gone, but I was still here. And as long as I existed, I would keep searching. Not for a cure, but for a way to live with what I had become.